into my sort of background. Began training in 2001. I suffered quite a heavy head injury in London, where I had actually paralysis on the left hand side. So that's where my weight training began. In order to build up that neurological connection again, I was advised to do a wee bit of weights. So that process took about 8 months, and then I decided to get my qualification as a trainer in 2002. It was always my intention to compete in bodybuilding, but unfortunately it was put to the back burner. 2 years ago, made the leap and worked away. The picture in the middle was about 10 years ago, so I was sort of moving towards it. Then I got into cycling, around marathons, and eventually came full circle back to bodybuilding. The one on the right here was me in August this year, 3 weeks before the British finals. It was just after I won the Northern Ireland. So that's my background.
Okay, I always had a keen interest in different types of sports, but one of the things that stood out to me most was Irish dancing. I started it pretty young, about 3 years old, and always sort of developed, worked at different championships up until I was about 16. Injury again sort of put a stop to that. I was fortunate enough to compete at the highest level, sort of world championships and regional championships, and sort of as I was coming out from the sport, and the last sort of achievement was 6th at the world championships. It taught me commitment and discipline from I was sort of pretty young, and as James would say, if the reward matches the effort, then it's all worthwhile. Competing, just as James said, it was one of the things, it never crossed my mind at all to ever stand on stage. I always wanted to sort of train and improve my physique, but it was only when James actually stood on stage. You're sitting there as a spectator in the audience. The only thing you can think of is how nervous the competitor is, sort of backstage. And 2014, James came out on stage, and the adrenaline, and I thought, that's a good feeling. But the difference is you sitting there and actually being behind stage as a competitor going out, it's completely different. People can tell you, try to prepare you for it, but you don't get the rush going out on stage. It's fantastic, and you never want to stop doing it. You're just constantly addicted to it. So that's my background, and James will just give you a wee brief introduction about sort of how you build up and move into competing.
Okay, first, if it's in your head, my advice is check the show out, go and watch it, try and absorb the atmosphere, and if you really feel it, whenever you leave that day, you'll know if it's the right decision to compete or not. I think working towards a goal is always good, and it's like you've got that up on the wall, that's your targets and your motivation. So beyond that is competition is a fantastic way to give you that final piece of the puzzle, and it just completes the picture. So dependent on body type, so at the top here, man drinking a wee bit of beer. It can be as long as 20 weeks prep. Now most people think prep means chicken, broccoli. That's your last 4 or 5 weeks, so it shouldn't need to be that difficult, because if you're doing that for 20 weeks, you're going to end up hurting somebody or yourself. So what I would suggest for most people is from week 20 to week 10, just to keep things really simple and remove the obvious, so things like alcohol, takeaways, processed foods, and there's still wee things that you can have if you want a protein flapjack, etc. You know, yeah, chocolate, carb time, right? And through the first 10 weeks, because you're still in quite a high calorie equity, you should still be able to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. It's not a completely separate thing. So down at the bottom here, nice wee image, mental and physical burnout. So if you are in serious calorie deficit in order to lose fat, you're going to end up sacrificing muscle. You'll find it harder to recover as well. So my tip is always try and keep your calories a little bit higher than you think is logical. And again, on days that you're training, fuel for that extra expenditure. By and large, a blueprint should be designed 20 weeks out. So if you go on to somebody that's going to be able to advise you on the nutritional aspect of it, they should be taking into consideration your body type, which we'll cover in a wee second, and how active you are, how likely it is you're going to burn fat quite quick. And that can be adapted, changed through that 20 weeks. Just going to hit these really quickly. Ectomorph, like if somebody comes to me and they're naturally lean, find it difficult to put muscle on. Generally, there's different protocol that I would use for these clients. Go back. So ectomorph is going to find it difficult to gain muscle. They're going to find it also difficult to put on any body weight. So I would tend to work them around 18 to 20 calories per pound of body weight and use that just as a general guidance. If it doesn't work and they're not building muscle on, you just have to keep increasing the calories until you feel that you're actually getting a little bit of muscle gain. The rep range also changes. So like heavy compounds, you'll be working between 6 and 10 reps just to try and shock that central nervous system and inspire muscle growth. Okay, so the ectomorphs, as a natural competitor, they may not be able to get on stage as bodybuilder, but there is men's physique, which is a good, just an athletic look, which might be more open. Okay, the next one is endomorphs. Endomorphs obviously tend to gain fat quite easily, sometimes find it difficult to drop fat. So working out what category you fall into is actually a really, I would advise it very much at the start. And these people, I try and get them a little bit more metabolic whenever they're working out. So I work with slightly higher rep ranges, shorter recovery, and I would tend to work them between roughly 14 to 16 calories per pound of body weight, so slightly lower than the ectomorphs. Finally, the gift. Mesomorphs, not everybody is blessed, but mesomorphs can generally eat what they want within reason. Gain muscle very quick, so literally look at a set of dumbbells and their biceps grow 3 inches. And so their protocol is really easy. They're going to have an easy time with prep. I work between 8 and 12 rep range. I would definitely say keep your cardiovascular workouts quite low to moderate, and the same with duration, and maintain 16 to 18 calories per pound of body weight as your guideline. These guidelines can be modified through the prep if they're not responding correctly. Those are the 3 brackets, but most people are a combination of these body types, and body types can be changed. It can be a slow process though. Any questions?
Just feel free. Yeah,
How often, James, would you, how often would you monitor somebody? So you've got somebody who wants to do a show and you've seen 20 weeks prep. Are you looking at their stacks every fortnight or
Every week.
every single week?
The closer that you get to the show, changes become so quick. Do you know what I mean? So muscle definition, how they're feeling as well is really important. So if somebody is coming and they might be looking great, but if they're feeling lethargic, then something's not right. The bottom line is you shouldn't have to beat yourself up to walk on stage. The last 3 weeks is a little bit harder, mentally and physically. But I would tend to just advise people to take their time, maybe start off with 1 session per week, and then closer to the show, it's 2 or 3. Generally, if I'm prepping somebody, as a trainer, I will charge them more than I would a normal client, because you end up being like their call. You get phone calls on a Saturday evening, 20 weeks out. James, can I send you a picture of the menu? I'm sitting in a restaurant here, what can I pick? And so you end up working outside your working hours, so the pay has to be reflective of the work. And they tend to understand. And people think that it's an expensive sport, which it can be, but what I find is you're sacrificing nights out. So the money that you're saving going out on Friday, Saturday night, you're buying your tan and stuff like that. All that necessities, right? So training protocol. I have my own design. It's called CPP, so it's compound progressive percentages. This so compound obviously meaning multiple joint really, so you're using different muscle groups. Compound exercise is going to always inspire the most growth because it puts the most stress on the central nervous system, which then you're going to release all the good stuff, growth hormone, IGF-1, testosterone, etc. Cortisol as well. CPP is just pretty much you're incorporating heavy compound movements, and then you work more into higher rep ranges to try and get that cellular volumization, so really getting that pump. So and it's a short workout, so each body part's taking roughly 20-22 minutes. Most people tend to, I need to be in the gym for 60 minutes. My thing is, if you're in the gym generally for 60 minutes, your warm up and mobility should be maybe 25 to 30% of that, and then just working on building muscle. Top time on
Keep it easy, please.
time under tension.
Yeah.
You've obviously will have covered that with different clients as well. I actually say wrong time under tension. It's time under true tension. So a lot of times I see people with their timer in the gym and they'll hit it. And as long as I'm doing this for 40 seconds, that's me 40 seconds of time under tension. You need to be more specific than that. So even on that negative load, you're trying to keep the muscle partially contracted as opposed to just allowing gravity to take that down. So controlling the weight, maximally engaging the muscle as well is a key component for growth. An example for me, so a lot of guards, bikinis, it's all about glutes. They have to look good from front, but more important, back. A lot of their poses are from rear view, right? It is a male dominant sport, probably as well.
Yeah.
Well, so when most guards, they're told to develop glutes, you've got to squat heavy. So generally when you come to top, you squeeze up through the movement. At the top, there's a moment of relaxation before you commit to your negative. I have my, particularly female athletes, as they come up, keep their glutes maximally peak contracted until they're going down, so there's no disengagement at all, and it makes your squat a lot harder. You'll be stripping plates off that bar.
Until there's only the bar lift and you still can't lift it.
So it's literally no ego lifting. Remember, your muscle does not know what 20 kilos is, but it does know what stress is, and it's stress that grows muscle. Generally, I get people away from back squats a lot of times, because most of the people are squatting to try and develop the glutes. For me, hip thrusters, which you can see in the bottom picture here, is far better. It's working the glutes at the peak contraction, and that's where you're going to get the most glute activation, and that is a heavy lift. I've had female girls hip thrust 140 kilo for sets of, so how many do you want, James? 10, 12, 40 reps on this set. You have to set sometimes things to be so unrealistic and get as close to it as possible. It's going to maximise growth. Change.
I see for hip thrusters, you as well building them up through squats before you start going into hip thrusters.
I would throw hip thrusters in from grassroots,
Yeah.
and the reason being to complement quite well. So if you think about a squat, as you'll know, a squat, the more extended that the hip becomes, the easier the exercise is. Hip thruster is completely different. The more extended the hip is, the harder it is. The load's at the top, and that's where the good stuff is for the glutes, right? And that's how you get size.
That's from it, is
Just really hard. CV protocol. Everybody is different, right? And it really depends on how much body fat the individual's holding at 20 weeks out. But generally in the off season, I would still do 20 to 30 minute HIIT sessions just to maintain your cardiovascular fitness. And it'll also stop you from gaining too much body fat in the off season, which is really important for female competitors in particular. The bulking phase, which is a term that I hate because it generally means that eat. And I've heard this in the gym from trainers, telling clients just eat what you want, you've got to get muscle on, and it's completely, you're going to ruin their body types. But generally 30 minutes or less. And yeah, so don't put all your cards down. I would actually try and get people to hold back cardio until you really need it. So whenever you're hitting that plateau, body fat is not decreasing no matter what you do with your diet, then you'll start to up it. And there's different arguments for fasted cardio or fueled cardio. Recent research says that females may consume a little bit of calories before they get apparently more body fat burning with a little bit of energy in there first, whereas fellas tend to lose more with unfasted state. Me personally, I'm old school in certain ways, and I like people doing fasted cardio if burning body fat's one of their main priorities. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Having somebody to tell you 3 weeks out you're ready, cut your cardio is key, because in the mirror you're looking going, I still look awful. and you keep doing cardio until the last day, but you end up looking tired on stage, which actually happened to me in the British finals last year. So, yeah.
You left it too long or too short?
My condition was right 3 weeks out. You know, my body fat was down to where it should have been. I did peak a wee bit early, but which was my intention. But I still was looking in the mirror going, I still want body fat to lose. And then looking back at pictures, you know, you were like going, I should have stopped doing cardio 3 weeks out. But I insisted on doing 5. I was working at maybe 6:30, 7 in the morning, so I was doing cardio at 4:30 for an hour on a treadmill in the middle of the kitchen. Boring, you know. So yeah.
Sorry, is the best thing to do cardio in the morning? Does it really make a difference?
So you Barry's maybe went through things like EPOC and stuff. No. So like EPOC would be like excessive post-oxygen or post-workout oxygen consumption, which means the bulk of your calories that you're going to burn are actually external to the workout itself. So for me, you could train at any time of the day. Just for personal preference, I don't know whether it's slightly psychological, you know, you get up in the morning, empty stomach, I'm going to get into that fat burning a little bit sooner because there's less energy in the bloodstream at that point, which there is a little bit of element of truth. So I would recommend, as long as your health is okay and your blood pressure is okay, you've no issues with diabetes or anything like that, then fasted cardio is not a bad way to go. 30 to 40 minutes.
See us all at 6 o'clock.
Get that run on. And okay, we'll have a wee bit of a break at the end of this one. Peak week. So this is a term through about by pretty much, I even hate saying the word gurus, but
yeah, I have a thing at the end of it. On the website, Jack said no, we have to lose that. Fitness guru, and he goes no.
No guru, no guru. There's no such thing. Right? There's people that know and people that don't.
Just prove my point.
Okay, peak week. So, people coming into the final week of prep think that if I start manipulating my salt, my sodium intake, my water intake, I'm going to magically look this completely different athlete at the end of that week. Yeah. So untrue, it's unreal, and I recommend people stick with it. If you're looking great a week out, why would you want to change something? It's not going to make you look better at the end of the week. So carb depleting in general will be done 8 to 10 days out from the show, and that's pretty much what we're trying to utilise all the glycogen in the muscle, so you tend to look a little bit flatter. But what that does is increase insulin sensitivity, so it means whenever you do store them or eat carbs, they're going to get into the muscle and they make the muscle look a lot better. So in general, whenever people are doing a Saturday show, they carb load on a Wednesday or Thursday and gradually build it up. Me personally, I like to start a bit earlier, because if you start carb loading on a Wednesday and you've overshot it, you don't have time to change it. That decision will decide what you look like. If you start carb loading on Monday and you realise that you're maybe spilling a little bit, you cut back. If you're still looking flat, you increase your carbs. And I think that 5-day process, you should be able to just nail it and look really good. Risks: too many carbs, big plate of spaghetti. If your plate looks like that, you probably won't make it to the stage, right? Yeah.
Are you dreaming about eating that?
Yeah, you really do, you do.
You should use made chocolate soap or something, you were saying.
Yeah.
No, it's the moisturiser, the tan moisturiser had the smell change. It was addicted to it, used to rub it on and smell it.
People were like, oh, are you craving Burger King or a Whopper? You know, they like going, this moisturiser smelled like strawberry candy floss or something. So she came up the stairs and I'm in there going, right, lovely. Don't record that. Okay, terms like spilling over. So as I said, we deplete the glycogen stores, so you're no sugar in the muscle. That makes the muscle look flatter. So whenever you carb depleted, you carb load, we're trying to fill all those up, and it means that the muscle will pump well, so you look really good, really three-dimensional on stage. The issue is if you over-consume on your carbs over that carb load, you can spill over. That means that the water will actually start to increase in the muscle, increase in the skin, and give you that sort of rubbery, almost like a walrus you look like going on stage. Eating too few. will mean that the stores are empty. You'll be standing backstage because you have to pump up before you go on. You stand backstage, pumping away, and it's like trying to pump a tyre that's got a puncture in it. There's nothing happening, and you look as feeble walking out on stage. So getting the right amount. It's finally at the bottom there. 1 gram of glycogen being pulled into the muscle cell also pulls in 2.7 grams of water. Makes the muscle look great, but it also hydrates it, which means you're less likely to be cramping on stage, which you'll see quite often.
It happened to me coming off stage through water depletion on for the first show. I was fine on stage. It was when I actually came off stage, I cramped really bad in my calves and stuff. It was horrendous.
Right, we'll just take a few minutes just to relax, have a breath, make sure that you're still awake and stuff. So anybody so far feeling inspired or nah, definitely don't want to do that?
It's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
It's never something I've ever really personally thought of.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's really.
It's an interesting
But you're in
process
here.
to go through.
I'm not being funny, right? You're in here, right? Type confidentiality. But you know when you get to that point, bro, and you can see your shoulders are popping and you're like,
Yeah, it's a confidence boost.
yeah, it's a confidence boost, but imagine that going for a show,
Yeah.
like,
Go and watch the shows and enjoy it and get a feel for it. That's the
Good
best
go on,
thing to
sure.
do. But honestly, sitting there and going, I could get myself in that shape. I know I could do it.
me and the dad, we went to one and we were sitting there in King's Hall.
I was probably never.
Nah, there wasn't that.
Yeah.
And the first time you're doing it, because it was like a shock thing, the first time you're there, you're like, right, here we go, bring out the men, and you're like, jeez, we're better close to the front door, we got this here. It's all coming out these monsters, you're like, jeez, what are you looking at? But then coming in 2 shows, that's like, number 6, I keep on number 2. He's so
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
No, no, you were picking. No, there was nothing natural about those boys.
yeah.
If you put them down sideways to be taller than them, still not.
Yeah. It's this is a true story, believe it or not. I would have a little bit of anxiety, right? Only in certain circumstances. I'm fairly confident most of the time. As a natural bodybuilder, I was the lightest on stage by probably about 3.5 or 4 stone in the first show. And we were on the steps about to walk out onto the stage, and I just seen, actually, it was like an eclipse from the front. This guy's back was here. And so I went, and I actually, in my head, just go back to change room, grab your stuff, go home, don't make an idiot. I had clients out in the audience, and they'll be one cancelling there, right? What does he charge? So I was like, I gotta get out of here. And I swear down, I went to turn to walk out, and there was a bigger guy behind me, and I couldn't get past him. I was excuse me, right? And it just didn't happen. Full panic mode, and then the next thing the girl comes out, she says, right guys, you're on stage. So I was almost being forced out, and then the foot hit the stage. It was like, right, it's just game time. You have to look calm. You know, and it's one of those things, you know, if you get a twitch in your eye and you think everybody can see it, but nobody can see it, but to you it's like bouncing around like this. I felt on stage my whole body was doing this, but looking back at the videos, I looked like the calmest guy on stage. It was like, boom. Right? And so I heard like the likes of DJ Al scream, go on James! And see in my head, I was like, that means nothing to you. That means nothing. Get me off here. And it wasn't until there was a group of fellas that I didn't know, because everybody, if your mum's watching me, she's going to be shouting, you're the best! Yes. Right. Beautiful person! Yeah. Inside he's lovely. And I just remember here, and it's on the videos, we bought the DVD afterwards, like all you hear is this guy shouting like, number 36, if you haven't won, I've lost a tenner. And at that moment I was like going, James, you've got this? Yeah. And it was just it just felt like such a turnaround at that point. And whenever the top 3 of us came out, I in my head I was like, I'd won. And to go from feeling I want to go home and crawl into a ball, and then have to explain to everybody the next day, no, I cramped or my stomach wasn't right, you know. But no, it was definitely a good thing. Just back. So sometimes you feel like you don't want to do it, just push through, and 16 weeks. You're training for years, but 16 weeks of prep. At that point you just want to walk on and hit it. So confidence sometimes is learned. It's not always there.
But each year you're going in, you're bigger, aren't you? Not everybody's bigger, but are you going in with specific goals so you know what you've completed next year, even if you come first year? Like, there's something you want to. Do you already have it for the year ahead plan?
Oh yeah.
What you want to work on, if
Well, absolutely.
your back,
Yeah. It's about
You can ask
bringing
the judges
everybody
feedback
up.
as well. Judges will give feedback on,
Yeah.
on the show, so if they think, well, actually I thought you looked pretty well, but you could develop this or that, and they will openly give feedback. So that's really handy, you know, for your next show coming up, especially between our show in August, the qualifier to the British finals, where we have 9 weeks. You can still change. You know, you can't do major changes with regard to size.
No, it's like somebody coming in for 6 week first training. You need to be a monster and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can make you better than monster.
yeah. Yeah, big time. Yeah. I think if it is something that's in your head, really, there's so much contrasting evidence that's out there. You know, as I said, like you can go on social media and you'll have a trainer promoting this and that, and the reality is there's no single right way to do it. A lot of it is trial and error, and what works for a person at the age of 25 might not work for them at 30, because metabolism can change. As I, touching on the body types, you can actually change and evolve into a different one. So, but if you're mesomorphic, your job is to stay in there, and that's why I say to people, if you're a mesomorph, don't play with high calories, eat what you want, because you're going to ruin the gift that you've been given, and then you'll actually struggle dropping body fat. And because I would always maintain reasonably lean, and then at my heaviest I was 16 stone 10 with a body fat percentage of 28 or 30 or something like that. So it was big in a lot of the wrong places as well. Right, show day, that's pretty much, this is close to the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah, well.
Show days should be fun day, right? Because all the wee snacks that you've been doing like for 20 weeks, torching yourself over and sugar and stuff, you can have some before you walk on stage, which is pretty awesome, and you end up getting this mad energy surge too. So my recommendation is game day, first thing in the morning, steak and eggs. Mouth is watering right now. Just to get a little bit of fats into that diet that you've been really trying to cut back on a little bit over the last few weeks. 30 to 50 grams of carbs every 2.5 hours. Now this is what I find it works, but you may have to change that a little bit. The final meal is pre-stage, about 2 hours before. I get bacon, and at that point I up my sodium intake. So not before. So people will talk about sodium loading 5 days out and then depleting sodium because magically you shed more water. I'll disprove that in a wee second. And then you see the wee snacks down here, they're all good to go about half an hour before you go on stage. And what those extra sugars are going to do is actually help with increased circulation, which is going to result in vasodilation, so your veins will pop, the muscle will start to pump a little bit easier, and you look and feel awesome on stage because you've had the most energy you've had for 20 weeks.
It's a better shape too, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. So it gives you that real 3D depth in the muscle. And I'll only go into a wee bit of the science anyway. So water and sodium manipulation, cutting water will help you achieve the dry look. That should be a question mark. Dropping water while carb loading, you put water from the skin, question mark. And for me this is a mistake. So you have, what a bodybuilder is trying to achieve is intramuscular fluid, so the muscle's really well hydrated, it means that it's big, and they want their skin to be as dehydrated as possible, apparently. There's actually no change, and as I said, I think it's maybe on the next page, that you generally maintain a 70-30% water between muscle and skin. So, and it doesn't matter what you do, change sodium, play about with your water intake too much or play about with carbs, it remains the same. Your body is a lot smarter than you think. And so any changes, generally with sodium, it will balance within 3-4 hours. So homeostasis. Yeah. So the balance and regulation of body hormones. If you try and change something, it's going to counteract it and bring it back to that balance again. Very smart process. Aldosterone. So if you deplete sodium, you deplete water, your body will actually release aldosterone, which actually helps to recycle sodium back into the bloodstream. And it can actually result in you holding more water. So people cutting water too far out from a show sometimes will end up looking worse.
Yeah.
The skin will appear like there's a little bit more fluid in it than normal. Obviously at the bottom, you always have to take in health implications as well. So if somebody's sodium is low, it's going to affect blood pressure as well. So people will walk out on stage and start feeling dizzy, and that's not in front of 1,800 people in Belfast or 4,500 people in front in Nottingham. You don't want to be feeling dizzy and sort of swaying on the stage. You might get marked down for that. Right, so I just want to say on this here, this has been conclusive. So serum sodium, that's your blood sodium levels. Aldosterone, as I said, is that hormone your body releases to try and keep you hydrated. And urinary sodium, so that's the amount of salt that you're obviously passing. So these are people that are actually trying to manipulate. So you see on initial levels here. So if people are playing about with sodium, urinary sodium will actually decrease, so it means your body's not passing as much sodium. Serum sodium, so blood sodium, remains the same even though you've cut your sodium levels out completely. But what you've done is elevated aldosterone, so it'll increase as those decrease. So it means that it's just recycling more sodium back into the blood, and you end up looking the same but feeling worse. So the key is keep sodium consistent and keep water consistent as well. There's ideal toilet pose.
Alright. Just going to take you through sort of some of the basic things that you need to prepare for before stepping on stage, and not only for female athletes but male also. The key thing is your posing. Posing, a lot of people sort of pass it off, I know, because at the beginning I really didn't want to do it. I would rather train, but it's fine to build the muscle, but if you can't show your physique in the best possible way, there's no point in stepping up, there's no point in doing it. They're not even going to look at you, you've basically wasted your time. So posing usually started about 4 to 5 months out, so basically at the beginning of your prep, so the 20 weeks out when you're just beginning, start running your posing sessions then. Even if James had always taught me 10-15 minutes at the end of your workout, do the posing. You're completely tired, you're exhausted, muscles are fatigued, but when you're on stage you don't know how long you're going to have to hold that pose for. So you need to put the muscle under complete stress. That's when you need to practice your posing, being able to hold it when your body's completely fatigued. You need to be able to do it. People underestimate the time scale that it takes to have that posing down to a T. And I practiced, like, from 20 weeks out, it was my big 1 or 2 sessions, just throwing it in here or there until I was literally in the studio at White Rock, going to DW, practicing in front of the mirrors, quarter turns, like until you're actually fed up and sick that you don't want to do it no more. This was maybe the last few weeks, every day you were still practicing, something's not right, it's not right, you're always changing it, recording it, looking back. You're standing there looking at the mirror yourself. A lot of the times you're doing posing on your own, you can't see the changes. You can't even see the changes in your body, never mind sort of how you look.
So
you know, it's best to record it.
You're saying about training with Barry being such a pleasure before he came in, weren't you? Okay. So if you could she was, honestly.
That doesn't sound like you at all. There's been tears, there's been everything.
So if you can imagine him teaching you how to pose, right, bear in mind that girls are on stage wearing high heels and a bikini, and me with the most deadly serious voice. That's not it. And prancing across the
That's exactly. Usually you would go to a posing coach. That's what a posing coach is for, to teach you. No, you're not.
See, we're not in America, maybe England has it, but no, doesn't.
They don't have a training camp. Well, that's something. That
But I know this is in there. That's why I like what you're doing, because like you're starting off and you're going down this route, which is a posing studio. What? Yeah, how do you so what I see, and you see people like, show us the ones in bodies bang like that there, and it's Arnold, like people didn't tell. He's talking about the boys go up on stage or girls go on stage and they're told front or whatever, they're called bicep or whatever, they show the bang, and he goes, anybody who starts, and you're like, so just for interest, as like, hold it for as long as you hold that there, see all that shaking, you can't have that. You're going to, I'm right, you want to work down. Everything has to be.
What I actually teach is.
But that's because the muscle's not used to the stress. That's why.
So you're doing training sessions with weights and stuff, but then you're doing training sessions just purely on.
Just even at the end of your training session, 15 minutes run it in, but then closer to the show.
But that would take you almost more. It's like
it's worse than training. It
Yeah.
honestly is worse than training. Like I remember doing my first posing, and the next day I couldn't walk, and I thought I wasn't even training back yesterday. What is wrong? Posing, being able to, it's just.
We're going to get Barry doing a few poses here in a second. He says that, do you want to get a pump up there?
Lend him your
Jackson.
trunks. It's okay, James has a strong system, so we're.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. Edel obviously knows me because she's with me. But whenever I go on holiday, I'm actually quite backward with certain things. I would not take my top off unless I had a corner of a pool, and I don't like that sort of walking around the pool. It's just not me. So walking on stage in the tiniest pair of pants, I'd never taken my top off since I was 4 in front of my mum. And now there's a big picture of me on the mantelpiece, facing my dad sitting on the seat watching TV, looks around, sees his son standing in a pair of pants.
I should put it right in the middle where it's facing on purpose.
Yeah. And my dad does not get things, you know what I mean? No. Unless it's got an engine in it, he doesn't know. So, go ahead.
So yeah, the actual time scale to perfect that posing is a long time. So the sooner you do it, obviously, the better you're going to be coming close to the show day. It's one of the most important parts in preparing for the contest, obviously, and I'll explain that later as well. And just to show your physique off, the full potential. That's what posing's for. That's what you want to do when you get on stage, hitting the right angles, being able to show the best parts of your physique, and when to do it. When the judges' eyes are on you, that's when they're marking you. If your posing's not right, all your hard work and you look fantastic, when you look in the mirror, if you can't show it off, you've completely killed it, and it's basically through your chances of placing anywhere down the drain. That's just the Olympia sort of winner.
The thing with Edel is quite a backward
Both are backwards.
in the nicest way possible, right?
That's why Paul enjoyed being up at the stage.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and so to actually see her walk on stage, and we had put so much work into her posing, and she blew everybody, even the judges said on stage your posing was miles better than anyone else on stage. So to get people think that most of these people on stage are extroverts and just want attention.
No.
You actually find that most of these people are so insecure, and it takes a lot of effort to go up, which changed my mindset, because I was one of those people who thought, you must love yourself a little bit. But the truth is, here's the corny moment: we all should love ourselves.
Cut that out of the video.
I'm a guru, right?
So obviously the category I compete in is bikini fitness, and just a little bit sort of about what it is and what's required to compete in that category. So it requires obviously all over body development, but the areas that they sort of target and look to score you on are sort of muscle development in the shoulders, so broad shoulders, they give the broad shoulder the narrow waist ratio, that triangle look. Quads as well as calves from side poses. I'll show you them. Obviously you can see them there actually on the quarter turns, so they're marking you on leg development as well. Back development, having sort of a muscular and sort of, you don't want too much striation in it, but enough development that it looks good from the back, because that's one of the most important poses. And your glute, they're always looking at glute development. That is one of the keys to being a bikini competitor. So how that works and how it's scored: round one is the girls doing the quarter turns, and that's sort of the photograph that you see there, sort of in the middle. You have your front forward stance, which is a relaxed stance. The girls are looking to show off just basically wide shoulder with a narrow waist, so you sort of turn away from the judges, your body turns away but you're facing them, and sort of how your leg development looks as well, so being able to put tension on your legs, show quad development as well as calf development. Then you'll do quarter turn to the right, in which you will show your left side. So at that point, they're marking your development from your glutes right down to your calves, as well as your shoulder development and tricep as well at that pose. Then you have the back pose. Now the back pose shows off basically all muscles from the back. So they're marking, scoring in around your sort of your traps, posterior delts and glutes. At that point, you also want to see development in your hamstrings, so you want to make sure that they're popping right down to your calves as well. And then you'll do quarter turn again, which will be to the right side before you're asked to stand sort of front on again. So that's just basically the compulsory poses that they take an initial first look, and that's where you want to get their attention. When you draw their attention at that point and they can't take your eyes off you, that's when you want, that's when they're scoring. So that's the first round, and from that they will basically select their top 3 to top 6. And if you're in that top 6, you know I'm getting a trophy somewhere along this line. And that was my aim. First show, I had no expectations whatsoever of placing. I thought, this is my first show, I am never going to place, but if I can go in with an aim to get in that first call out, I'll be happy. Got the first call out, completely forgot what it even meant for a first call out, because it's the last thing you think about until you actually go out there, and then to get a trophy, it's fantastic. So that's your first aim. At that point, they will be asked to do some more comparisons before the ladies are asked to do a T-walk. So what is a T-walk? The ladies' T-walk, it's a 60-second routine in which each girl individually goes out and shows off their physique in the best possible way. So you'll come out on stage, and centre stage, you will be asked to walk forward to the sort of the front of the stage. You will then go through your quarter turns again, and then you will walk left and right, showing off your physique at every angle. The T-walks aren't scored. You're not gaining points at that stage, but if you're showing off your physique, especially areas that might not have been picked up on in quarter turns, then it can be really important. Yeah, because if you are scored quite close together with another competitor, it could be that point that actually gets you the trophy. So it's always important. That's why posing is important from really early on. Even though it's not marked, you still need to do it. And comparisons again may be called from the top few just to make sure that the placing's right, and then they'll award trophies. So that's sort of the routine of the day. So basically, the assessment, what are they actually looking for in this category? They're looking for all over balance and symmetry, and all muscle development. So they mark everything from complexion down to your skin tone, poise, and your overall presentation. As James explained, having nerves and stuff on stage, I was sick as a dog backstage. Just nerves. It's sort of excitement, and their excitement of wanting to do it, get it over and done with, and be able to enjoy food or whatever. But it's the nerves of going out there. There's people you know in the audience, you don't want to let yourself down. So, but being able to hide that and going out and showing confidence. I know I've done this. You have no idea. You don't even know how many girls in the category until you actually go into the lineup. So being able to think, you know, I've won that. Go out, let the judges be attracted to you. Oh, this girl's confident. They're scoring you on your confidence as well. How well, but everything, like your makeup, I'll go through that as well.
It's actually harder for the girls.
It's not like they
the
say
sense that
it's
they're on the
expensive.
microscope more.
It's that category, because it's not only about your muscle,
Yeah.
they're marking everything. Like, and it says, like, they'll say your complexion, but that's everything. That's like your hair. You know, if you have tattoos, sometimes they can score girls down for tattoos because they say it knocks their symmetry off. Because if they have a tattoo there's not a tattoo on that side. They're marking symmetry from head to toe. You know, from head to toe, they're
Even
marking.
your haircut, so
A girl had a shaved head,
shaving this side,
and long there.
got marked down for it.
She placed second when she should have won. They will mark
You
everything.
let their head
So
be
it's
big.
always important to take that into consideration when you know you're going on stage. Everything has to be done to perfection, hair to perfection, makeup to perfection, tan, and James will know obviously. And I'm saying to him all the time, is that okay? Is that okay? Touching it up, making sure everything's perfect. Right down to putting the glaze on, I'll go through that as well. Everything has to be right. And although it looks right now here in front of you, when you're on stage, don't forget those lights on stage, the brightness, the tan might look ridiculously dark to the normal person because obviously you're a lot darker than them. But on stage, with the light on you and the heat pumping out of it, sweat running off you, the tan's running, that's all something that you need to take into consideration.
Something that I'm always saying to anybody that walks up on stage, whether it's male or female, you're always being judged. So if there's 20 people on stage and they're calling 5 people to the front and you're standing at the back, you have to stay tight. So if I've got people that I'm prepping, and they're in the back of that stage, they might think they're not being watched, but I'd be like going, keep it tight,
Yeah.
because they can be marked down. So if they're like breathing and their abs are hyperinflating, etc. So always keep your game on
The
until
judges
you're
are
off the
always
stage.
marking. Judges are always marking whether or not you're in that lineup. But as James says, they're always marking. Even changing transitions between a front pose and a side pose. Every muscle still has to be held under tension. They're marking you at every point.
Symmetrix precision.
Yeah, it's always everything's precise. They're marking everything.
We'll just keep this one short because
I had basically covered that anyway, just skin preparation and sort of what you need to do and how to do it. So hair removal, obviously the most important thing, needs to be done. All hair needs to be stripped from the body, and you need to be able to see muscle definition and preparing the skin and exfoliating. All that needs to be done as well correctly from the week out. Coming in, you don't want to get on dry skin and then putting tan on and getting patches because you're marked on your tan as well. So everything needs to be done correctly.
Is that the same fella? Is that photograph?
Yeah, that's a tattoo cover. So obviously James with tattoos, tattoos can hide the muscle definition, especially if you've worked really hard and you want to see that striation, you want to see everything popping through there. So you can get a tattoo cover, which James did use the first year here, then he thought it might have covered too much of his actual definition as well as the tattoo, so didn't use it at the qualifiers this year, and then we did use it again at the British
and
finals.
that's another thing. It's just trial and error. Do you know what I mean?
So you would use it?
Yeah.
You have to learn, you know, but you try different things and you go, well, you look back, I look better there than I did there. You extract information then from that. And that's another thing as well. Part of your preparation is photographs. You know, as much as you don't like looking at them 20 weeks out because you're not in particularly great shape at that point, you must take them. And then, because it's a really good sort of visual line progression up until day zero when you're ready to rock, like, you know.
That's not, and again, the schools are good not only for obviously when you are competing, but if you go next year to compete again, well at 20 weeks out, this is what I looked like last year, you know, how far off that am I a bit closer or whatever, that probably can determine the length of prep that you need as well, can shorten it, make it longer, whatever. So just as I explained, hair and makeup all needs to be done professionally, and it's good to have someone there to do it for you, even if you think you can do it yourself.
Do you have a company to cut or?
Well, we did our own tan ourselves because I wouldn't trust anyone with the tan. So we done that ourselves and built it up over so many days. Yes, I had the girl who I know who's a makeup artist come and do my makeup. She does stage, that's her job. She to do stage actors and stuff. So she came and done that, and then obviously the hairdressers. You don't want it. Although you can do it, you don't want any more stress. You don't need that stress in the morning of the show. I did it at the British finals because I had no other option. But if I could have had it, then I would have done without the stress. So that's it. Choosing a suit and accessories, it's extremely important. The prices are scary, but it's worth it when you know that you've got it right when you're stepping on stage.
A women's bikini will cost anywhere from 250 up to 800.
£100. I have a bikini there.
Diamonds?
So yes,
Well, they actually use like, is it,
I don't know, I'm only guessing.
whereas man's pair of trunks, I think they were 12 quid or something.
So
Stop talking.
So,
How much would a gay pair of trunks be?
men's.
12 quid, you can get them 12
Oh,
quid.
12
There's a
quid.
difference between the men's,
Yeah.
but then again, the men's, it has to be a plain fabric. You can't.
Yeah, that's-
David, you want to try that on for sir?
So you can post.
Yeah.
And it's good, you need to make sure, especially when you're ordering your sheets, that you're ordering from a reputable company, you know, someone who has a reputation of being able to do for good competitors, you know, not just for regional shows, you're talking about competitions where it is a championship, you know, and they can be depended upon. The bikinis need to be ordered anything from, I think, 6 to 12 weeks. I think mine took about 10 weeks to prepare. So you think of measuring yourself and putting that in, that's when you're nearly 2 months out from show. So you're not going to look like that and weigh that much come the time. So you need a company who knows how to judge, basically, you know, roughly what you're going to be like coming into the show as well. So that's important. And I also would up there, ordering from a reliable source, it should reduce the chance of any malfunctions happening on show day. This happened to me at the British finals. I did order of probably one of the best that I could in the UK, and my bikini broke literally about an hour before I was stepping on stage at the British finals. So you need being able to fix it, calm yourself and stress, you know, don't stress out, just fix it and go and do it in the hope that it will pop when you're on stage. So
You hit those
That-
poses carefully.
I'll just let you have a wee look. So the ladies bikini. So that you can sort of pick whatever you want and then design it, whatever crystals, colours, whatever.
So that you can never know.
Actually, when I chose it, I realised I still had the number on from. So that was sort of the bikini that I had chose, and I wrote there, it's important to choose a colour that complements and highlights sort of your features, so your hair and your skin tone, all that's being marked on. So I mean, I'm not going to go out and choose a real washed out colour that when I step on stage you basically can't even see. Again, you want to choose a design that just does enough for you and complements you. You don't want nothing that's too in your face, because that judges won't even look at that, but you want just enough sparkle just to draw their attention. And again, selecting jewellery and accessories, you don't want nothing that's in their face, just subtle and nice. That'll draw their attention. You have to wear the jewellery and stuff too. That's why I put in there. So you have, I was going to bring, there's the earrings, the bracelets, ring, everything. And if you're having one bracelet, it's usually two bracelets, everything's symmetrical. So all that needs to be taken into consideration as well. And then shoes. Obviously, if you're practicing your posing, you want to order your shoes when you're beginning your posing practice, so from about 20 weeks out. That way you're going to be able to walk in, break them in, get them comfortable. And I wore them cooking, cleaning the house. I wore them everywhere. I never had them off my feet. I was everywhere, and people would come in and stand and cooking, training gear on, posing shoes on, just walking around, getting used to them, the feel of them and stuff. So it's important to choose a shoe that's not too high as well. So in around a 4-inch heel is probably perfect.
A lot of the federations actually have regulations in regards to the attire that you choose. So in general, they use like a 4-inch heel. They'll actually state that. So it's only certain types that you're allowed to use.
And a clear shoe. There's not allowed to be a platform at the front. Platform at the front then raises your head, and it also shows off your leg muscle a bit more. So they will mark everything. If you have a platform on your shoe, you're disqualified, you can't go on stage. There's certain cuts of bikini, so that's a classic cut, which is a 3/4 coverage from the back for the girls. If you go anything lower than that, you'll also be disqualified, because obviously you're showing too much skin that shouldn't be there. So you're marked on everything. So that's.
You can see what's the top of sport, like just.
Do you get your nails and all that?
Everything's done. The nails are done as well. Nails are done to match in with everything is done. So
She's done it a lot.
it does cost a fortune. But in your first year, but obviously if you're going to use your bikini, you'll always wear your shoes. The shoes are always clear. They sort of look the same anyway. That was my second pair of shoes. I actually purchased the pair. There was no strap around the ankle on them, so you sort of in and out. And I could walk in them fine, but I had visions of going on stage, really nervous, and walking right out of my shoe. And I thought, no, I need a shoe that I know isn't going to come off my foot at any point.
I was advised as well, as a fella, you think it can't get much more, is it metrosexual to call it?
Yeah,
Right. So you got your tan, you've shaved all your body hair off, and then I was told you got to put nail varnish on your toenails, because it stops the tan from staining your toenails.
Yeah,
you could technically get marked down for that.
Yeah.
I don't think too many judges will be like, if your head's
Do you
low
use like
stuff.
Vaseline or something as well?
Clear nail polish.
Yeah.
And the girls, which I learned, well, I probably should have known, but you being on stage and your mouth gets really dry, you need to smile all the time. They're always marking you as well on your smile and how confident and everything. So what I had learned at the British finals, I had seen the girls rubbing this stuff, what is it? Vaseline on their teeth so their lips would even stick together, and I thought, alright.
Yeah,
So you're always picking up different
Your mouth
tips
dries
along
up
the way.
like that.
Yeah.
It's just nervousness.
Yeah.
Your saliva just goes somewhere else, and then you're sitting down doing that
And literally
stuff.
stuck. Yeah. So
It's not bad.
I just pick up different things along the way.
Yeah. And like you're backstage, and everybody's sort of out for themselves backstage. I'm talking to people, and see a guy that's looking nervous, and like, look, it's all right, you'll be bloody glad. I'm the one that's probably wrecking it more than him, but I'm trying to get everybody out on stage to have a good time and stuff, but you'd be going, here, mate, your tan's running there. And you're like, sort of fixing them up,
That happened
Look at that.
this
That's how we do
year.
it.
This year again at the qualifiers. Obviously before you go on stage, you do a pump up. But one of the guys, when I was back with James, helping him prep before he went on, this guy, was his first show, and obviously people can be there to help you, or they'll not tell you anything and just let you go out and completely destroy your chances of placing, especially if they know that you're looking better than
Yeah,
them.
there's a chance.
Yeah, so they won't tell you. Well, this guy who was in James's category, he hadn't competed before, and he's pumping up, but he must have been pumping up for about 40 minutes even before he was stepping on stage, and he just kept pumping and pumping, and the sweat, the tan had run off him. That's basically what had happened, and he was absolutely sweating, and James says to him, listen, you're pumping up far too soon, your tan's running off you, by the time you get out there you're going to be exhausted, you're not going to be able to pose because you've completely fatigued yourself anyway, you know. And to have someone there, James didn't have anyone there the first year he'd done, but for him to have someone to come and sort of help him out, and he did, he thanked him so much, you know, thanks very much, you know, whatever, when you come off stage, to have that wee bit of sort of encouragement, someone there to look out for you is really important.
Yeah. Look, everybody's out for themselves. My sort of theory is if you look the best, you're going to win. It doesn't matter if you help somebody or try and put them down backstage. And one of the things that I do is just my sort of style. The biggest guys backstage will be stripped down 20-30 minutes before the show, and they're pumping it up, and they're almost like sort of like looking at you going I'm sitting in the corner, looking calm and underneath, kind of scared, slightly shaking. But I keep fully clothed, really, but like extra large boys, t-shirt, right, and baggy trackies, and I'll just sit there, and they're all like going, you're looking very calm. And like going, sure, it's 5 minutes, we've still 5 minutes before we go on stage. And I would literally get up and do maybe a couple of sets, and just as they call us to go out, then I would strip down. Everybody's already doing the sort of ego chest beating stuff, you know what I mean? Because I'm never going to win the size game being the smallest on stage, so the only way I can win is symmetry, conditioning, proportion and stuff like that. So.
And yours isn't class and height. When you're going on stage, you can be against somebody 6'7" if you
yeah,
want.
well, I'm in classic bodybuilding, so there's a height to weight ratio.
Right.
But unfortunately, the taller you are, the more allowance you can have. So one of my friends actually now met him at the show. He would have been about 4 stone, 4.5 stone heavier, but about 6 foot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you can understand, like, you know, being the little guy was slightly intimidated. But this ties beautifully into, this is like the final bit, so you can go home and have a wee sleep after. I'm going to use Barry in a wee second. Yeah.
Turn that camera up there.
So on stage, ab control, so your adrenaline's really high, so your body wants you to breathe like this, which is never going to look good, you know, hyperinflating the abs. You have to keep that composed, and I recommend people trying to breathe into the chest instead. So, you know, keeping those slightly braced. But we know that what the role of the abs is to actually flex the spine. Now that's not going to look good on stage, and I see people trying to crunch their abs on stage and they're doing that. Me being the smallest guy, definitely not advisable, because if there's a 6'1" guy beside me and me 6 foot dead, you know, and if I crunch these down, I'm going to look like really small. So I actually open up my abdominal cavity a little bit, keep the breath high, and if you're lean enough, your abs will still show anyway, so I don't need to crunch them down. But the 2 biggest guys, top 3, so there were like 2 pillars with me in the middle. The top 3 were announced on stage first year, and both of them, how do we look? This is whenever I felt that I'd won. I looked at the left and the right, and they were crunched. So they were 6'1", but standing 5'8".
Yeah.
I was 5'6", and I just stretched up. Now who's big? I was able to obviously take it home. So that's why posing's really important. You know, if I had took away that factor, I probably wouldn't have won, to be fair. Talking about muscle shaking, it's something that I try and tell anybody that's going out on stage. Your muscle doesn't change if you try and flex it harder, right? It doesn't get bigger if you try and flex it harder. You flex your muscle, that's it. If somebody's trying to over-engage the muscle, it doesn't change. You just look like you're shaking now, right? So compose, just hit the muscle enough, and it's an endurance game, because as Edel pointed out earlier on, you could hold a pose. There was one of the times on stage that we had to hold a pose for 4 minutes. You're just holding that, blood pressure's going up, you start to feel a wee cramp, oh God, I'm going to cramp, then you start to panic about the cramp, so somewhere else is going to cramp, and then you look like a mess on stage. So composure is the biggest thing, keeping your breathing going, and literally it is too late to panic at that stage, you know what I mean? So, do you want to show us some muscle.
Not really, I'm not really. I'm feeling a little bit out of season.
Off season.
Yeah.
So-
How's that coming up?
No, it's alright. It's alright.
Do you have any muscle?
Get up here, Jack. Here, too.
Okay, your daddy show is.
Yes. Okay, so if I said you have all these different poses, I'm not going to go around them all, but
Jack really would feel comfortable to get up here with me.
No, good.
Keep good.
so I'm going to ask you to do a front double bicep,
Right.
right? So the one you were talking about earlier on. So hit that for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few pointers that I would look at straight away. Nice. Where's the bathroom? Okay, hit that pose and hold it for me. Okay, so the first thing that you do in posing, male or female, start from the legs up. So what you would actually do before you hit your bicep pose is plant your legs as if you were trying to squeeze the floor. And the way that I like to do it is, you imagine that's a leg press, knees are slightly soft, as if you were going to push the floor away. So that'll tighten all them up. Then we're going to go into the bicep pose, so you get marked on transition, so it's not a matter of going front double bicep, bang. You want to actually move in, so cross the arms, looks pretty good as well. You like that?
We might have
Right? And you would drop down, and then come up, and hit the pose there,
Right.
so you're nice and tall.
So
Again,
see, like you just naturally, you go bicep, you go yeah, but you're coming out.
depending on the muscle belly, so if somebody's got like nice long muscle bellies, I would recommend close to a 90-degree angle. But if the muscle belly is quite short, so the bicep's quite short, there's going to look like too much of a gap between the muscle and the forearm. So I would actually recommend them folding that arm in a little bit, shorten that distance. It's all about illusion and what way the muscle looks. So lastly, put them up.
Yeah.
So right now, if Barry's arms are slightly behind the shoulder position, so that's going to stretch these out, so you're going to lose any thickness in the chest. So I'd actually get him to lift a bit higher, pull forward a little bit, and now you can sort of crunch on the chest muscles as well, so it'll give a little bit more three-dimensional, yes, feeling good, three-dimensional look through the chest as well.
He's got a lovely mind.
Nice! I like it. So that's he does. Yeah, those are all the compulsory poses. There's no point in going through them with you, but the front double bicep is probably one of the main ones that people really want to see, and really hitting it right. Now the thing in practice is if you don't have a me or somebody that's going to move, you need to lift that or push that or change the angle or do whatever. You just got to video yourself, watch it back over and over again, and it's a long, monotonous process. But if you fail to do that, you're going to end up, you could have a great physique and just look like you're falling apart on stage. So attention to detail at that point.
Some would love to have a go at in a few years, whatever, like keep thumbs up that. But like you're saying, just to get that rush,
Yeah.
completely
That's it.
describe yourself up there.
But once you've done it, you keep wanting
I
to do
don't
it, you want to do
imagine-
it, you want to do it again.
Contribute to like giving like the best man speech. Once you've done it, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
As
exactly
soon as
what
you
it
walk
is.
stage, you probably want to go fast.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
next one.
I think the key thing is bodybuilding isn't for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Some people struggle, but if
That's what everybody's doing, and when they come even here, they
Exactly. As I said, anybody that's coming, male, female, if they're coming to the gym, they're trying to change their body composition, decrease body fat, increase muscle, you're bodybuilding, you're employing the same protocol for that. Ultimately, I always try and emphasise to anybody, go to the gym, if there's something that tickles your fancy, whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever, go in and do a competition, have that end game, something that you're going to work hard, and there's no greater motivation than knowing in 16 or 20 weeks you're going to stand there in a small pair of pants in front of a room full of trainers.
Yeah.
And that was in my head, and I had what I like to do in my studio is I have a board hanging from the ceiling, and I would always change the saying on it, so it's something that resonates. So whenever you walk in, I'm probably looking a bit cheesy, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Gold frames.
And one of the first quotes that I had came off, my fear of not being good enough will make me be the best. And that was a really great motivator for me because I didn't know where I stacked up in regards to other bodybuilders. And in my head, I was going to be the worst, but my fear of not being good enough at all made me train harder than probably anybody coming up to that prep. And like,
Even your background though, from where you came, we were seeing you had your issues with your health and
Yeah.
stuff coming up to, like we're all sitting there going, fuck, your motivation is, oh, get big. There's no, I'm not saying everybody's got motivation, but when you can do that, it shows
Yeah.
you that if your mindset's right, you can.
there's no right or wrong reason for getting into it,
Yeah.
but I think the stronger the reason, the harder you'll train. And I look back, people would say to me, like, you know, I don't look at that as a bad time in my life. It was actually a really pivotal time that actually changed me and changed my mindset, and I was quite thankful for it in the end. But people would say to me, what was your hardest workout? And I've done cycles, marathons, and etc. And it was actually putting 200 cotton buds back into the tub. They'd strapped my right hand to the bed and emptied the cotton buds out of my chest. And the occupational therapist sat there and says, I want them all back in. And the only way I can sort of describe it would be, if, you know, like the teddy bear machines with the mechanical arm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're like going left and it's going right, and you're like, right, you can't get that prize. My head was telling my hand to do this, but it was going out, and then I was having to stop and concentrate. It was like trying to control the mechanical arm. It was so strange. And that was after like 6 weeks. That's whenever I started to work. And it took me over 2.5 hours to get those cotton buds back in, and the sweat was beating out of me, like, you know what I
I
mean?
was seeing something in your head, was something so simple, you weren't even focusing on
And
what
do
you
you think if you hadn't have gone into the athletic whole thing
Yeah.
at the outset, do you think you would have recovered all your mobility on that
No.
left side?
I was told that.
Was your left side, yeah?
Yeah,
And was your speech affected?
it was speech. Now you would guarantee that you'd be speaking right to people,
Yeah.
and then people are looking at you confused. It was really frustrating. And the way that it
Snap
was
the words.
described to me was, you know, you've a filing cabinet with different words, you know,
Yes.
right? And you'd be going in and open the cabinet drawer to extract the word to give that sentence out, but one of the drawers was stuck. But I thought that I was getting the word out.
Yeah.
So, but I was reading out the main word, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the thing that binded all those other words together, it was gone. And people were like looking at me going, are you okay? But yeah, that's where it's, you know, getting through that, it was the physical side that was a lot more frustrating, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they'd say I'd suffered a lot of sort of ketosis, so like there's a picture right at the, obviously the very start, and I was
You were on the left hand side of the
Yeah.
photo,
I was down to 7 stone 6 or something like that, you know, and the left side was significantly smaller. The muscles had wasted away.
The one standing behind the guy in the pink vest.
That was in King's College Hospital in London, and that was after about 3 months or something like that of being in there. So that was always my motivation, do you know what I mean? And that's why I promote natural. If you're going to bodybuild, do it naturally, because I don't believe that you should be tampering with what we've got. Do you know what I mean? You get the best out of what you can achieve naturally, and
And
that's.
I know it's not your area, I won't digress, but I just want to ask you, have you gone to speak to people who maybe have had strokes, young people, and that kind of thing? Have you ever done that?
It's motivating, it's motivating.
Cool wee story actually. Whenever I came back to Northern Ireland to 2002, and I went through the occupational health, and it was the Down Lisburn Trust that actually were taking to do my case, and they were unbelievable. The standard of service was fantastic, and so anyway, then at the end going, right, you're good, you're free to go, right? And about 5 or 6 years later, I was working actually in White Rock, and this woman comes in with a guy, and I had a scar which runs from here, because it was obviously the skull was down, and it was blood clots in the brain, you see. So he had the exact same scar, and it's a surgical scar that they would use to actually get blood clots out. So this fella comes in and he was limping really badly, his speech was very poor, and I was like, he's exactly the same thing as me. So I'm talking to him, and then the woman turns around to me and goes, James. And she was one of the main ones that were at the front of the health team. And she's like, that is absolutely fantastic, you know, I'd love you to come down and talk, you know, because a lot of these guys think worst case scenario. So I went down and stuff at that point and was able to speak with them, and you know, I was like, "Oh, guys, it's up to you how much work you put in." I was told you maybe get 60-70% mobility, and everybody considers themselves to have a weak side. I don't have a weak side. Both are equally as strong. So, and that's just, don't take it.
I know I was joking earlier about Barry, but it is your mind, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
It has.
I actually find it more what's the word? More philosophical that you are. I think it's a really strong thing to have. Do you know what I mean? So people might mistake it as cheesy, but I consider. Yeah, I think that's more or less us, isn't
I
it?
think so.
Any other questions, or I know it's quite long. Really short.
No, you can't. Anybody would be interested in.
And can you train, I mean, obviously we were not going to be in competitions. I will not be purchasing that, but I do go to the gym, you know, just, I think I'll enroll with Barry later on. I do go to a gym a couple of days a week, but obviously you do it to not get arthritis and to be fit and all that.
Yeah.
But can you train, not for competitions, but can you train to that level at any age, or have you to be like all young like you people? Or
Absolutely.
There's other categories. There's masters categories and stuff.
No, but even for not competing, there's the name might come back to me anyway, but there's a woman, she's an American lady, and she started training at 56, and I think she's 79 now, and I'm not, like, from the neck down she looks 30, and apparently so she's natural. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of it's down to genetics, and the bottom line is you should be looking to get the best out of health and from a physical standpoint, regardless of what your genetics are. Do you know what I mean? And you don't need to be stepping on stage to employ those protocols, like, you know.
Brilliant. And lastly, Adele, for you getting into this, I need to touch on it. Was it with, I'm going to say it wasn't yourself, was it something that was always, you were saying with the Irish dancing, it was always in you, but was it when you and James?
Well, I obviously with the dancing, and then I did like cross country and running type sort of training for a while, and then I had nothing for a few years, and not having that goal, even doesn't matter how big or small it is, just to push you on, you know, wanting to be able to achieve something. I thought I need to do something, you know, I have nothing to work for, and it was just by chance me and a few of the girls that I worked with decided we would go and do the Belfast Marathon. I thought, you know, it'll give us that wee bit, and from that then I thought, well, I've trained so hard to be able to do that, I'm not going to let all that go to waste. And then that changed, and I thought, you know, I'll change the training style, and I was just going to Vegas. We went to Vegas for the first time in 2012 and to see the Mr. Olympia. Now at that stage I was sort of doing weight training, playing about and learning different tricks, whatever, but I wasn't into it. And being in the audience and watching the girls at that point, I thought, whoa, you know, that's when I started to take my training serious, and then working out, I thought, right, that's my goal. You know, my goal at that point still was never to compete, but I thought, I want to build muscle, you know, get muscle development, be able to do all that, you know, see how far I can push myself, see what I can get. And then when I thought, well, actually, you know, I can push myself that wee bit more, and then again, seeing James in, when he was on stage for the first time, and I was sitting in the audience, and I thought, I know I can work hard enough to get myself in that condition. You know, I'll try it and see. And even that year, I had done the prep with James as well. I wasn't stepping on stage, but I thought before I sort of mentally put myself through it, I need to see if I can do it physically. So I trained, done all the competition diet and everything the same year that James competed for the first time, and I'd done it all except I didn't have that thing at the end. And I was in the Smith, you know, and I thought, right, I've done all this work, but there's nothing at the end of it. And I thought, right, next year I know I can put my body through it. Training's nothing. You enjoy training, you can go and do it. It's not the hard part. Even the diet, well, the diet can be hard. That's not even the hard part. It's your mind. Learn to train your mind and sort of how to cope with all them things together. And I thought, right, well, I can do that and I can do that. So I'll put them together and see if I can push on to do the show, and that's what I've done. So if you can do it and it's something that you want to aim for, definitely go and do it, because you'll love every minute of it.
Yeah, you really learn more, as I said. Like, I've been prepping people for years for shows, and you're using stuff that other people's research, It wasn't until I did it myself and you realise, right, I would actually word that differently, and
Yeah.
hopefully that will resonate, and most of the time it's worked. We've got a few that are top 5 in the world at the minute and stuff that train out of my place, and one of them in particular, she'll probably get her pro card this year, which will be one of the first ones in the IFBB from Northern Ireland. So we have a couple of good guys that are going to be pushing through this year, and that's why my decision to compete this year, well, it's either yes or no, depending on what stage of their prep and how everything's going with them.
Would it detract from, distract you from?
If it's smooth, I felt really guilty last year for a lot of my clients, because you feel that your standard of service has decreased because you're focusing so much on yourself as well, and it's quite a selfish sport. What I would say is anybody that was considering competing in something like that, make sure that your relationship is strong. Do you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't have stopped me. She stopped me last year. I don't know how, but it's not an excuse. So whenever a trainer is nasty to his clients, which I've seen because he's on a diet, I'm like, you got to get over yourself. Just because your blood sugar is slightly low doesn't mean that you've got the permission to talk to people like, trash. So get it all right, and if you're in a really good, strong place, surrounded by good, positive people, then get that competition going.
Yeah, I thanks. So I know, I just want to get people educated a bit more, and with decent people. There's no doubt that's a desire. There's no egos. It's a bit of crack, but it's for me. I don't know about yourselves. Like to hear this and to get this on. I mean, picture myself going on stage and go, I don't know if you're right. It's like there's a bit of security there. It's like a blanket. It's like there's other people doing it. They're not all egos in the gym.
Yeah.
They're not all full of steroids. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be as long as you enjoy your training, you eat right, and if there's ever an inclination, I think that's a good tip. Go to a show, check it out, see if you like it. See if you get that bit of a rush. Sure, you can imagine cheering like, "Go, Christina, go!" No, I can see you doing that sort of stuff, even though she trains like a beast.
Yeah.
Tricia, you too. The two of you train when it comes to this. I can see there's that competitiveness, and it's only because you give me lip back when you're going for squats and stuff.
You learn not to do that. I don't know.
Everybody else has a nice rapport with me. It's nice and polite, and we train, and it's good. This gets very angry together.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to know if you can push into. I'm not trying to push anything into anything, but if there's.
You are.
Yeah. Is it in your head, Christina, or no?
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to do it, yeah.
I just think, see if it's even remotely in there, you're not contracted to it, do you know what I mean? You could turn around and go, there's a show here, how long do I need to prep? As I said, establish a protocol at the start and go through it. And if you're 8 weeks into it, it's okay to say, nah, I don't think I want to see it through. Do you know what I mean? Don't feel like you're bullied into it or anything like that,
Well, if you keep it to yourself, sort of. I tried to do that last year, and then the more people found out, I thought I really can't go back. Because I'm not going to say, by the way, I know you've all got tickets, but I'm really not going to do it.
That is a big thing. I'm trying to say to people that I'm training, stay off Facebook. Don't be checking your competitors, what they look like on Instagram and all this rubbish. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Don't be uploading pictures of yourself. You don't want the competitors to be sneak peeking. Wonder what she's looking like. Oh, she looks awful. When you see her, because this is the reality. It becomes. It does become very negative and they call it the Northern Ireland sort of bodybuilding family. And well, I suppose it is family because they do argue back talk, but. I try and say to people, just stay off it, focus on yourself, because anybody can look great in a picture, and then whenever you see them in real, I was told this year in Northern Ireland, sort of sponsored athletes, sort of going to be, one of the guys sponsored by bodybuilding.com, and I was being told in the gym, this guy, he's unbelievable, James, you don't have a chance.
He's in your category too,
You don't have a
you
chance.
need to be careful.
When you see his photo, and I'd go straight off, I don't care what his photo looked like. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to see it.
Yeah. Did you have a look?
I actually stuck it up in the gym every day. You're mine. He was. But I beat him anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it. Useful, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks guys for
Thank you very much.
listening, or at least staying awake.
And let us know when you're competing and if you was a club, definitely.
Yeah, well, I think Egal's going to do August
I'm going to do the qualifier here again.
Belfast.
Last question about abs. I'm sick of hearing about abs.
No, women don't have to have defined abs for bikini. No.
Right. What is it? You said when Adele and James Robinson's Adele makes all the
The protein.
Yeah.
protein treats.
Oh,
There's a few over there for sample. You were saying about when you were getting your abs for your competition.
Oh, abs. I actually wanted to cry. Abs, especially as women are coming down, obviously people are different, but the way my body condition was, my shoulders popped through first, so I had all definition come through my shoulders and my arms. Then within a few days later, my back development came out, so I had striation and everything through my back. Then it took so long, especially for women, because you have so much sort of intramuscular fat along your quads and stuff, around your legs, glutes, everything. It takes so long to get that condition, but it does come, and I was so impatient, and I kept saying to James, it's ridiculous, please, and have patience, and he's always shouting at me, take your time, it'll come, and when? It's like 3 weeks, you know, and take your time, and my legs did eventually came in for the qualifier, although I knew my condition wasn't as spot on as it should have been, but for first time, you know, you have to judge it somewhere and then see where you can improve. So obviously for the British qualifiers, I came in a lot quicker because I knew, you know, what to do at that point. So my legs came through, and then I think it was only about a week and a half before the show until I actually started to see any ab definition.
You would think you would have them.
Yeah. Oh,
6 months.
oh, no problem. And you get them. No,
Yeah.
doesn't happen. And for women, and you'll see a lot of it, even at the British finals, even the ones who were like winning, obviously there's 6 women's categories, although there's bikini fitness, you have all height restrictions within that, so there's maybe 6 categories that fall, you know, up to certain heights, and some of the girls that were winning some of those categories didn't have to find abs. It's not a requirement, it's not something they look for. They're more impressed as long as your core's tight, and obviously there's no loose skin or whatever, you know, as long as it's tight and there's some sort of conditioning, whether it's through your obliques or something there, they're more interested in sort of shoulder, back, leg, glute, all that. Definitely, they're not abs. Will come, you know.
I didn't train core
Didn't
at
train
all.
abs. No, well I did. I threw a few
You
in
did,
towards
yeah.
the end, but we never trained them. It's all through engaging
I don't do
and
that.
through your breathing,
No.
through squatting and all your
So,
confident lifts,
you
because that's
confident
what's
lifts.
tightening
Yeah.
your core.
Positioning comes through really
Yeah.
nice.
Stuff you
So I was
and
never
biceps and
trained.
The only thing that I use for ab control was doing hit sessions, so something which was blowing heart rate up, so simulates like adrenaline on stage, and get down into a plank, just to learn how to be able to keep that tensed at all times while you're on stage. So that's the only slight bit of core that I've done.
Well, thank you very much.